Too young, too nervous, too pregnant? There are lots of reasons why an actor would want to avoid showing their skin on screen. These are the ones who've opted to use body doubles. In addition to its CGI dragons and massive battle sequences, one of the most renowned aspects of Game of Thrones is its penchant for nudity. HBO's Smash series was unapologetically abundant in its topless scenes, and several stars, including Emilia Clarke, Natalie Dormer, and Rose Leslie, actually did bear it all during their time in Westeros. However, Lena Headey, who plays the show's villainous Cersei Lannister, opted to use a body double for the notorious sequence in which her character must atone for her sins by walking nude throughout the streets of King's Landing.
She will cast aside all pride, all artifice, and present herself as the gods made her, to you.
The actor who stood in for Headey, Rebecca Van Cleve, spoke with Entertainment Weekly about the process of collaborating on the tough scene. She recalled, "Lena was so good about walking beside me and guiding me into what Cersei was thinking in the movements. We were playing tag team, you're it, and trying to make light of the fact we're all covered in everything and going through this together." Although over 1,000 actors auditioned to be Headey's double, the Emmy nominee reportedly had no say in who got the role. However, she did express her admiration for anyone with the courage to take on the scene to Entertainment Weekly. Although her first official acting credit came in 1993, Isla Fisher's big break came some 12 years later in the 2005 comedy blockbuster Wedding Crashers. In the film, Fisher holds her own alongside stars Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn, at times stealing the show as the obsessive nymphomaniac Gloria Cleary. In one of the film's raunchier moments, Vaughn's Jeremy wakes up with his hands tied above his head and a naked Gloria on top of him. Although it's hard to tell the difference, the woman in the scene is not Fisher, but one of her body doubles. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Fisher admitted that not only did she have a breast double for that scene, she also had both a butt double and a hand double for another particularly promiscuous scene, where her character performs a sexual act beneath a table. She explained to the outlet that she initially argued against some of Gloria's nudity in the film, believing that the sexualization of her character might take away from the fact that she's actually funny. She said, "I amped up the reality of my character even more. I thought, to combat the fact that you're going to see her boobs, I have to make her even more extreme for us to still get a laugh." Is it possible to have consistent casual sex with someone without falling in love? That's a major question behind 2011's Friends with Benefits, which stars Mila Kunis and Justin Timberlake doing their best to get it on without long-lasting attachment. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. A premise like this is inevitably going to include some intimate scenes, and the rom-com didn't shy away from delivering. While Timberlake reportedly had no problem burying his rear end on camera, Kunis opted to use a double for some scenes. Although she did show a little skin throughout the flick, the scene that exposes her character's full bottom features a butt double. When speaking to Ryan Seacrest on his radio show, Kunis jokingly explained her decision, saying, "I showed side boob and I figured I can't just give away everything all at once. I gotta let it all out in little pieces here and there." 2016's Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates had a lot going for it on paper. Perhaps its most promising facet was its talented core ensemble of Zac Efron, Adam Devine, Anna Kendrick, and Aubrey Plaza. However, after a particularly poor box office outing to go along with abysmal reviews, it's safe to say that this misfire needed more than a strong cast to hit pay dirt. While the film didn't do too well commercially, the comedy did have a few laugh-worthy moments. In one particularly funny scene, Kendrick's Alice and Sugar Lynn Beard's Genie take ecstasy, causing them to strip down and free a stable of horses. While Beard bared it all, Kendrick used a butt double for the scene. When speaking with E! News, Kendrick opened up about the surreal process of picking a double. As she described it, she was asked her opinion about what she wanted from a butt double, which led her to believe she was going to have much more say in the final pick than she did.
And they showed me like 3 pictures and they were like, I mean, this is the only one that could be you.
Keira Knightley is no stranger to nudity. The British beauty appeared topless in both The Duchess and The Edge of Love back in 2008. When speaking to Allure in 2012, Knightley explained that although she doesn't mind going nude, she does have her limits, saying, "I'm quite rigorous about what gets exposed, no bottom half." However, the Oscar-nominated star changed her personal policy after becoming a mother in 2015, opting to instead use body doubles in any future nude scenes. She expressed that while she is perfectly comfortable with her body, since getting older and having a child, she no longer feels much need to display it so clearly as she once did. When 2019's post-World War II drama The Aftermath called for a nude scene with co-star Alexander Skarsgård, Knightley stood firm on her decision. In fact, she quite enjoyed the process. In an interview on Live with Kelly and Ryan, Knightley recalled that she actually got to select her body double, and that the entire experience was fairly pleasant for all involved.
She was very nice, and they apparently had a lovely time, and I got to not take my clothes off and eat cake on the other side of the table.
2004's The Girl Next Door was perhaps a tad ahead of its time. Starring a young Alicia Cuthbert and an even younger Emile Hirsch, the risque rom-com has developed quite a cult following since its theatrical release. Cuthbert recalls that the film especially resonated with a unique demographic. She explained, "I remember I had a lot of real porn stars tell me I was like their Julia Roberts from Pretty Woman." Although Cuthbert was the film's true marketing draw, you could argue that Hirsch was its breakout star. Playing high schooler Matthew Kidman, it was his first major motion picture, and the then 17-year-old didn't want to hold anything back, including his bare backside. However, in an interview with IGN, the Into the Wild actor recalled that he wasn't allowed to shoot the scene during which his character streaks through the streets of his neighborhood for legal reasons. He explained, "I was 17, so they had to use a body double, but I would have gotten naked."
The whole package.
Katy Mixon played April, the lifelong love interest to Danny McBride's character Kenny Powers in HBO's Eastbound and Down. Throughout the comedy's first season, one of the most prominent bits in the show is how infatuated Kenny is with April's breasts. His obsession is so profound, it's at times difficult to determine if he actually likes April or if he simply likes her body. At the end of the first season, Kenny finally gets a chance to reignite things with his old flame, and while getting hot and heavy in a car, April treats him to a look at the source of his fixation. Although it may seem hard to believe that it isn't Mixon in the shots, the actor has gone on record to declare that she doesn't disrobe on camera. As she explained to Vanity Fair, "When Danny McBride and Jody Hill told me about the nude scene, I was like, well boys, I guess we're going to have to go with a body double, aren't we?" Considering it's a series absolutely dripping with sexuality, it should be no great shock that the 50 Shades franchise was going to have a lot of nudity. The film's leads, Dakota Johnson and Jamie Dornan, were up to the task of playing protagonist Anastasia and Christian, but they weren't without some assistance in the bedroom.
We were only there to protect and help each other.
Reportedly, Dornan utilized Canadian model and actor Peter James Gray to double for him in erotic sequences for which he didn't need to show his face. Johnson, on the other hand, showcased her own body throughout the film, with one notable exception. She reportedly has tattoos in places that might contradict aspects of her character's personality from the audience's perspective, so they brought in a stand-in for close-ups of Anna's rear end. In an interview with the New York Times, 50 Shades cinematographer Seamus McGarvey confirmed that he was the one to cast Johnson's body double for these shots. As Jon Snow, the bastard of Winterfell in Game of Thrones, Kit Harington became a household name. He used the series as a primary vehicle driving his fame, building a massive fan base and being consistently ogled for his rugged good looks. He married his co-star Rose Leslie in 2018, and he's still widely considered one of the most attractive men in Hollywood. However, some fans might be surprised to learn that when Jon Snow showed his bare rear end in a romantic cave scene in Season 3, it wasn't Harington's cheeks on camera. In an interview with GQ, the star admitted that he had injured himself 6 weeks before shooting. Due to a broken ankle, he was unable to perform certain shots in the scene. For any Harington fans who were disappointed by this revelation, fear not. Harington did eventually show his unclad rear end in Season 7 when he and Emilia Clarke's Daenerys Targaryen got intimate on a ship. Filmmaker Lars von Trier is nothing if not a boundary pusher. While it's up for debate whether all of his cinematic swings connect, that does not seem to stop him from continuing to take major risks in his productions. Famously, his 2009 psychological body horror film Antichrist opens with a couple, played by Charlotte Gainsbourg and Willem Dafoe, having passionate sex in the shower while their infant son falls out of a window to his death. From there, the events in the film only get darker and more twisted. What sets this sequence apart from many other depictions of intimacy in film is that there's a shot that shows close-up, unsimulated sex in slow motion. While both Gainsbourg and Dafoe have shown plenty of skin in movies before, and most of the shots in Antichrist are of the two actors, Von Trier opted to use stand-ins for this one particularly graphic display of intimacy. Speaking to Dazed Digital, Dafoe explained that one of the primary reasons for this choice was that both actors were in long-term relationships. Dafoe also explained that Von Trier opted to use adult film stars as the stand-ins, remarking, "It was a good decision because if that was me, then that's all that people would talk about." Jessica Biel was determined to distance herself from the role of sweet Christian daughter Mary Camden on the TV series Seventh Heaven, and her initial stretch of film roles certainly reflected that. Within just a few years of filming her final episodes of the show, Biel had already done her first on-screen nude scene for the 2009 drama Powder Blue. The direct-to-DVD movie was neither a critical nor commercial success, and Biel had to deal with the unfortunate side effect of her nude scene from the movie being spread all over the internet. Interestingly, Biel previously had a no-nudity clause in her contracts. As she told Cosmopolitan in 2005, "That's for my bedroom and my man, not for everyone else." So when her 2005 film London called for close-ups of her character's naked body, Biel insisted on a body double for those shots. She got to choose her own double, something she called a really bizarre experience. However, she changed her tune for Powder Blue, and despite all that happened with that movie and her nude scene, she told the Daily Mail in 2011 that she wasn't opposed to doing more nudity if the right project called for it. Pamela Anderson had a lot of issues with Hulu's Pam and Tommy, a miniseries that told a fictionalized version of the theft and sale of her private sex tape with then-husband Tommy Lee. In addition to being reluctant to have that terrible time in her life drudged up again, she objected to the fact that the project went forward without her involvement or blessing. That being said, Anderson doesn't hold any ill will towards actor Lily James, who portrayed her in the series. She acknowledges that James was just an actor doing a job, and she doesn't take her involvement in the series personally. To that end, James's performance of the embattled Baywatch star was highly praised by critics, even those who weren't impressed with the series as a whole. In addition to her acting work, James had a lot of help from a talented makeup team to assist in her physical transformation into Anderson, including the creations of prosthetics that mimicked the model's physique. However, those prosthetics were mostly designed to look good underneath clothing, so when it came time to show Anderson naked, fitness model Marissa Hoffman stepped in as a body double. Stephanie Hsu has been kicking around on television and in movies since the early 2010s, most notably through recurring roles in the series Girl Code and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. However, it was her acclaimed performance in 2022's martial arts multiverse mega hit Everything Everywhere All at Once that put her on the pop culture map in a big way. That performance, in addition to her Academy Award nomination, seemed to open a lot of doors for Hsu, as 2023 saw her appear in 4 movies and 3 different television shows. One of those movies was the comedy Joyride, which faltered at the box office but was a huge hit with critics. Co-starring Ashley Park, Sherry Cola, and Sabrina Wu, the movie follows 4 friends who go on a wild trip together full of hilarious misadventures. The pals discover many outrageous truths about one another during the trip, including the fact that Hsu's character Kat has a tattoo in a very private spot, which the film proceeds to showcase in all its glory. In speaking with Variety at the Joyride premiere, Hsu didn't want there to be any confusion about the matter, stating, "It's a body double. Let me be clear and let my mother know." When you watch Fight Club for the first time, it's tough to know what's real and what's in the head of Edward Norton's character. It's pretty clear even before the big twist is revealed that he's an unreliable narrator, and the fact that we aren't told his name, and the movie teases us about that fact, is a definite red flag in that regard.
No, I am listening. It's a little hard to know what to make of all this.
To that point, when he seems to have a dream about his mysterious pal Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt, having sex with Helena Bonham Carter's character Marla Singer, it's not entirely clear if it was a dream, a memory, a fantasy, or something else entirely. What's more, the fact that it is shown in slow motion doesn't help in getting to the truth of what's happening. What we do know for sure, however, is that neither Bonham Carter nor Pitt's bodies are on display in the scene. Instead, the scene was filmed with body doubles of both actors, and their faces were digitally added into the sequence after. With the release of Eli Roth's 2023 slasher film Thanksgiving, 3 of the joke trailers from Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino's Grindhouse double feature have now been turned into real films. The first of these fictional films to become reality was Machete. Directed by Rodriguez himself, the movie did well enough to earn a sequel, Machete Kills, 3 years later. Like some of his other works, the Machete franchise leans heavily into the seedier aspects of 70s exploitation films, including gratuitous sex and nudity. It seems as though he got both Jessica Alba and Lindsay Lohan to bear all for Machete, but neither of their nude scenes are what they seem. In Lohan's case, while she is topless for much of her screen time in the film, she has a long blonde wig that strategically obscures her breasts. In the scene where her character makes out with the titular Machete while her bare breasts are visible, you'll notice Lohan's face isn't in any of the same shots. The reason for this is because those breasts belong to a body double and not Lohan herself. Kate Beckinsale spent much of the 2000s and 2010s going back and forth between being an action star and appearing in indie dramas, with occasional detours into high-concept comedies. 2009 saw her return to action after having taken a few years off from the genre, starring in the film adaptation of the 1998 comic book miniseries Whiteout. It was a critical and commercial disappointment that failed to match the success of her Underworld franchise, though Beckinsale told About.com that she did appreciate trading in skin-tight latex outfits for more casual shirts, jackets, and pants. However, there does come a point in Whiteout where Beckinsale's character takes even those less formal items off. Despite the fact that the film takes place in Antarctica and there's a lot of bundling up involved, people do need to shower from time to time. It's for this reason we see her character, Deputy U.S. Marshal Carrie Stetko, naked on screen. When word got out that Beckinsale's bare behind was going to be visible in the film, it was quickly discovered that it wasn't her, but a body double instead, and rumors circulated that it was Beckinsale who had demanded it. Strangely, Warner Brothers felt compelled to issue an official statement on the matter, verifying that Beckinsale didn't insist on anything, and that body doubles are standard in these situations and the production just automatically hired one. You, Me, and Dupree follows Owen Wilson as Dupree, a freeloading house guest to married couple Carl and Molly who has more than overstayed his welcome. Dupree seems adept at getting himself into situations with Molly that are particularly awkward, such as when she discovers him sleeping naked on her couch with his bare backside in full view. As you can probably guess by now, that particular backside didn't belong to Wilson. He said that he was never asked whether he'd be willing to do the scene himself, and the directors Joe and Anthony Russo just decided on their own to use a body double for the scene instead of Wilson. Unfortunately for the actor, they didn't offer a stunt double for the scene where Dupree takes a tumble off his skateboard and injures his groin in the process.
I racked my little Duprees!
In 1967's The Graduate, Anne Bancroft's Mrs. Robinson wasn't only trying to seduce young Dustin Hoffman's character Benjamin with that teasing glimpse of her bare leg above her stockings. Rather, she was trying to seduce the entire audience. Given that the movie is still discussed, quoted, and a source of inspiration for other films all these years later, it's safe to say she was successful in doing so. The iconic shot was first alluded to in the legendary poster for The Graduate. However, the leg that made it to print didn't belong to Bancroft at all. Curiously, this time it wasn't an unknown body double standing in for a star, but a star herself. In 2013, nearly 50 years after the release of the legendary film, actor Linda Gray revealed to Anderson Cooper that it was her leg, not Bancroft's, on the poster that we all know so well. As for the movie itself, Mrs. Robinson does eventually strip down, and that isn't Bancroft either. According to Fox News, she was prepared to shoot her nude scenes for The Graduate, but changed her mind when it came time to film, and a body double had to be brought in instead. A common legend is that a stripper served as the body double, and that's never been substantiated. The fully scripted films that Sacha Baron Cohen has written haven't fared as well with critics or audiences as his mockumentary efforts. Nowhere is that more apparent than his 2016 comedy The Brothers Grimsby, which is currently the second lowest rated movie of his entire career on Rotten Tomatoes. In the film, Cohen plays down on his luck Nobby, a man searching for his estranged brother Sebastian, who has since become a decorated MI6 agent. Also starring in the film is Rebel Wilson as Nobby's long-suffering but lovingly devoted girlfriend Dawn. Cohen has never shied away from nudity in his movies, and Grimsby was no exception. In this case, there is a scene of full frontal nudity involving Dawn, but Wilson told Marie Claire that it's not her in those shots. She explained to the outlet, "They got in another girl, this larger burlesque dancer from South Africa, to be a nude double." Wilson said she made it clear before and all throughout the production of the film that she wasn't willing to be nude for the movie, but she hasn't ruled it out for the future. She elaborated that she would likely reserve that for a more serious role as opposed to a comedy. Up in the Air earned both Vera Farmiga and Anna Kendrick their first Academy Award nominations, competing with each other in the category of Best Supporting Actress. The two play the main women in the life of George Clooney's corporate traveler Ryan Bingham. Farmiga is a woman he's been hooking up with during business trips, and Kendrick is Ryan's colleague, who pushes him to act on the feelings he develops for Farmiga's character. Speaking with Times Union, Farmiga admitted that she had done plenty of nudity before Up in the Air, and was prepared to do so again during an intimate scene between herself and Clooney. However, she says that writer and director Jason Reitman didn't feel comfortable with it due to Farmiga being pregnant at the time, so he opted to hire a body double instead.
Is that a joke?
Feeling she had something to prove, Farmiga pushed Reitman to film a version of the scene with her doing the nudity herself, and he reluctantly obliged. Despite Farmiga's confidence in her appearance in the scene, the filmmaker ultimately went with the version featuring a body double for the final cut of the film. Brooke Shields was only 14 years old when she filmed The Blue Lagoon, which has understandably caused some controversy over the movie's erotic overtones. However, it's worth noting that despite the fact that Shields' character does appear naked in the film, any shots of her exposed breasts or other instances of actual nudity were done by an adult body double. Even so, it still doesn't change the fact that the teenaged actor did film large portions of the movie topless, with her breasts only covered by her hair, which had been taped to her body to keep it in place. What's worse is that the movie makes it clear that these are supposed to be underage characters, and they are depicted as being intimate and having sex in a manner meant to be provocative and titillating. Of course, Shields had already been nude on screen in 1978's Pretty Baby. She was only 11 at the time of filming. The actor borrowed the title of that film for her 2023 Hulu docuseries Pretty Baby Brooke Shields, which documents her career and discusses her sexualization at such a young age. Drew Barrymore was only 17 when she starred in 1992's erotic thriller Poison Ivy, so it seems obvious why the choice was made to use a body double for the film's nude scenes. But Barrymore apparently would have preferred a different approach. While the actor shows plenty of her own body during the movie, director Kat Shea did confirm that a body double stepped in when things got particularly hot and heavy. Specifically for the shots of Ivy's breasts, a double was used for the final cut, much to Barrymore's chagrin. In a 1992 interview with Movie Line, Barrymore explained that she was under the impression the topless scenes would only be part of the film's European distribution, but she later discovered the US version of the movie included them as well. Barrymore implied that she would have preferred her own footage be used instead, lamenting, "Well, no offense to the girl, but I have prettier boobs than she does. I'm pretty bummed that America's gonna think those are mine." It would seem that the few seconds of unsimulated sex in Antichrist were just a trial run for what director Lars von Trier was cooking up for the future. A few years after Antichrist, the filmmaker put out his two-part epic Nymphomaniac.
I'm a sex addict, but I haven't had sex for 3 weeks and 5 days.
Coming in at a combined 325 minutes for the director's cut of both films, Nymphomaniac contains multiple scenes of unsimulated sex. Even more shocking, much of the sex appears to involve A-list actors. Shia LaBeouf, Stellan Skarsgård, Christian Slater, Jamie Bell, Maya Goth, Charlotte Gainsbourg, and several other famous actors all appear to engage in real sex in the 2 volumes of Nymphomaniac. At the very least, the characters' faces and genitals are sometimes visible simultaneously to assure viewers they're all actually the ones having the intercourse. However, producer Louise Vest had already debunked that notion before the movie's release, telling The Hollywood Reporter that the cinematographer shot scenes where the actors simulated sexual acts, and then also shot versions where body doubles performed the actual acts. After filming, the two were digitally combined, so the actors' faces would be visible from the waist up, and anything below the belt would belong to the doubles.